we're all here. Okay. I should ask. Staff, are we okay to go?
Yes, Mayor, we are ready.
Thank you kindly. Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of May the 24th, 2022. Calling the meeting to order at 7:10. I do apologize for our tardiness. We had a study session that concluded a little behind schedule. At this time, I'd ask for roll call.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Here.
Councilmember Salazar?
Here.
Vice Mayor Mason? Here. Mayor Rico Medina?
Here. Thank you. Everyone is here. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we'll move on to item 4, public comments for items not on the agenda. Individuals will be allowed up to 3 minutes. It is council policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak at this time on items not on the agenda? If you could please raise your virtual hand.
I do not currently see any hands up.
Thank you kindly. We will move on to item number 5. We have our first item A, and I'm going to turn it over to Director Ann Matoa, please.
Good evening, Mayor Medina and council members. So I'm just here to give a great reminder to the community that we have a full day of celebration planned on Sunday, June 5th, starting off with the San Bruno Lions Cozy Parade. That begins at 11 o'clock a.m. on San Mateo Avenue at Canes. And then the parade will be followed by Community Day from noon to 5 along San Mateo Avenue. There'll be so many activities there. We really don't want you to miss anything. We have global cuisine from our outstanding restaurant community, a kid zone and a touch a truck, 2 stages of diverse music and cultural performers, art activities and art vendors, and community group exhibits. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
My mute wouldn't go off. Thank you very much, Director. Next, we will go ahead and go to item B, and I'll call upon Lapita, please.
I apologize for the delay. On Saturday, May 28, 2022, beginning at 8 a.m., Recology will host the 2022 Compost Giveaway at San Bruno City Park, parking off of Santa Lucia Avenue, also known as the former pool parking lot. This event will be a self-serve event. Please bring your own bucket and limited to 5 gallons per household. For more information, please contact Recology San Bruno at 650-583-8536.
Thank you very much. And the last one they held was in August of last year, so they've done it every year, and was in a different location that didn't get a lot of as much participation, so they've changed it to go ahead and try a different location, as you see it here. Next, we will move on to item C, and I'll turn that over to Director Pamela Wu, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very pleased to announce 2 exciting items. The first one is the second virtual community meeting relating to the housing element update, which will take place on May 26, 2022, virtually from 6 to 8 p.m. You can join the workshop by following the link. Also, we're pleased to announce the public draft of the housing element update. That's also available at sanbruno.ca.gov/housing element update. And later on this evening, we will provide you an update to the content of this draft document. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And now we will move on to item D. You can stop sharing the screen. I like it. first, we want to announce, we already had been announced that Mr. Zaffarano is retiring, but the City Council wishes to thank our City Attorney, Mark Zaffarano, for serving the San Bruno community from 2011 to 2022. And if memory is correct, it began in February of 2011, and those recall what happened in September of 2010. So Mr. Zaffarano came in at a very, shall we say, unique and challenging time to San Bruno, and has been there with us ever since through many challenging times, but also rewarding times. And so I and the City Council wish very much to offer our thanks, appreciation, and best wishes in retirement to you and your family and all your future endeavors. I'd like to see if Mr. Zaffarano, our City Attorney, has any comments.
Thank you so much. Just thanks for the incredible opportunity to represent City for these 11 years. It's really been an honor and a privilege. And also many thanks to a wonderful staff and 2 city managers working together as a team to accomplish really an incredible variety of both projects and strategic initiatives for the benefit of the community. So thank you again for everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Zaffarano, as well. And I knew it would be to the point, as you have always tried to keep it to that. I'm sorry, is there a hand up at City Hall?
Yes, Mayor. Really briefly, I would just like to, on behalf of all city staff and the department head team in particular that has worked very closely with City Attorney Zaffarano, just thank him for being a consummate professional. His partnership and friendship is greatly appreciated. And wish you well in retirement, and your service to San Bruno, I know, is something you can be proud of for every day you're on the golf course. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I hope it'll be the tennis court instead, but otherwise that's great.
or the tennis court, yes.
Much appreciated.
Thank you again, Mark, very much for everything. Item E, issue proclamation to declare May 2022 as Jewish American Heritage Month of the City of San Bruno. The proclamation before me, and I will read some of the whereases. Whereas in recent years, Jewish Americans have increasingly experienced anti-Semitism, including but not limited to physical attacks, vandalism, verbal and physical harassment, and hateful comments posted on social media. And whereas San Bruno shares an obligation to condemn and combat anti-Semitism, whenever it exists, to include Jewish American in all facets of civic life, and to stand with the Jewish American community against hatred or bigotry in our community and country. And whereas there is a need for education and policies that are culturally competent when describing, discussing, or addressing the impacts of being Jewish in all aspects of American society, including discourse and policy. And whereas we celebrate the rich and diverse heritage of the Jewish American community, including those who live, work, and play in San Bruno, and now therefore may it be resolved that I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, declare the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month in appreciation of the achievements and contributions made by members of the Jewish community. San Bruno calls upon all residents to celebrate Jewish Americans who have woven the fabric of our country and community, and supports opportunities to learn more about the Jewish American history and culture. So I appreciate that, and thank you for the slide from staff. And if we could move on to our next item, which is F, and that is issue proclamation to declare June 2022 as Pride Month for the City of San Bruno. And I will read some of the whereases. Whereas the City of San Bruno is committed to supporting visibly dignity and equity for LGBTQ people in our diverse community, and whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has the infinite dignity and worth, and that the City of San Bruno calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice wherever it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the San Mateo County's LGBT community, and it is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen allegiance, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, hereby proclaim the month of June 2022 as Pride Month in support of the LGBT community. And there is on the agenda under consent, a resolution as is our practice and policy for the council to take action to raise the flag for the month of June. Thank you for that. We will move on to item G. San Mateo County Anonymous Gun Buyback will be held on June 4th, 2022 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 1050. That's 1050 Mission Road in South San Francisco. It's being held in South San Francisco, but San Bruno, our police department, and San Bruno is also participating and involved with this as well. And finally, I know it's not on there, but I did want to acknowledge that on Memorial Day, there will be a live and in-person celebration to pay respects and honor to all of those at the if we could stop sharing the screen, please, at the San Bruno Golden Gate National Cemetery. Again, it will be occurring. They expect a large turnout, and that is on Memorial Day at 11 a.m. at the San Bruno Golden Gate Cemetery. With that, that is the end for announcements and presentations, and we will move on to consent. All items are considered routine or implemented in earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. We have items A through I. Are there any items we want to pull for a separate vote? Seeing no separate vote, are there any items to add comment or ask a question? Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item F as in Frank.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
I also wanted to pull F, so I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, let's go to F and Frank. Adopt a resolution accepting the Avenues 1-3 sewer and water main replacement project as complete, authorizing the filing of the notice of completion with the San Mateo County Recorder's Office, and authorizing release of the construction contract retention in the amount of, let's see, what is it? Is it 300? No. Is that what I'm thinking? 301,874.95. Sorry. And as I'm going to turn this over to staff, or I'm sorry, I'm going to first turn it over to Councilmember Medina, and then Councilmember Hamilton, and then to staff, if need be. Mr. Medina.
You know, let's go ahead and let Mr. Hamilton speak, since I spoke so much at the last meeting, and I would like to hear what he has to say. So, if you don't mind, Mr. Hamilton.
Very kind of you, Mr. Medina. Nobody was counting. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina. I just wanted to make just a brief comment to recognize the completion of this large and very important project, and to thank the city team, everyone involved, for bringing the project in and bringing it to a close. $694,200 under budget. That's a major portion of that's going to go back to the Stormwater Fund, which is sorely in need of funding. So it's very much appreciated, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Medina?
Yes, I pulled it for pretty much the same reason, also to highlight the efforts that we're going through with our staff to upgrade our water and sewer systems, and also to acknowledge that when we did these projects, that we are putting curb ramps in, we're required to anytime we are paving the streets, and there are many residents are happier with their newly paved streets that go hand in hand with when you replace water and you replace sewer. So just wanted to thank staff for that and acknowledge that we are replacing our infrastructure. And the second part of it is I do want to apologize to staff for sending an email on Sunday regarding a couple intersections that had some landscaping issues with curb ramps, and I just wanted to make sure that if staff had an ability to look at them yet, but making sure that there is some restoration to the original condition, at least some improvement than what is being left now. Lastly, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, but I do want to commend the contractor. I observed a large improvement in the workmanship and notification procedures and the general just kindness and awareness of the contractor while they're working on the street. Thank you for that.
Thank you, and Mr. Hamilton. I'm sorry, that hand was.
I put it back up because I realized I misspoke, and I indicated that a good portion of that money was going back to the stormwater fund when it's going back to the wastewater fund. So I just wanted to correct myself. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other hands up from colleagues and nothing else on the consent, let's open it up to see if there's any members of the public that wish to speak on consent.
I do not see any hands up.
Thank you. So, action from council, please.
Through the chair.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
Yes.
Did staff hear a question? And I sent an email on Sunday. I apologize, but that's when I sent it. I was wondering if they were able to or will be going to look at the intersections I referenced, because when we accept closure, it's done. We're accepting this project as complete. So just wanted to see if there was some movement on that.
City Hall.
Councilmember Medina, we do not have a response at this time on those intersections, and will the contractor be able to restore them, or is it something staff can do? We honestly haven't had time to fully investigate it.
And it's not that much more work, honestly. It's just one of the things that I noticed in the neighborhood at least two of the intersections. So it won't be too costly, but understanding the time crunch and if staff can look into it and fix it at some point, that would be, I think, the right thing to do. So I'm ready to support this with that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Okay, let's action from council, please. I know it's action from council on consent.
Through the chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Salazar Hamilton, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we will move on to item 7, conduct of business. Item A, please.
Waive first reading and introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 10.16 Water Conservation on the San Bruno Municipal Code.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the Public Works Director, Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Mayor Medina and members of council. My name is Matt Lee. I'm the Public Works Director. I'll be doing this presentation tonight on water conservation with Rodor Biektan of West Yost. And Rodor, if you can start the PowerPoint slide presentation. Rodor will start first and explain the water conservation regulation changes, and I will follow up at the end with actions that we've done to date for water conservation, and we'll open up to any questions and comments that you may have. Medora, take it away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Medora.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Medina and City Council members. Tonight, I will be bringing to you a proposed update to the city's water conservation chapter. Under this agenda item, City Council is asked to consider revisions to the San Bruno Municipal Code 1016 Water Conservation Chapter. In this presentation, we will provide background and context for the revisions, specifically relative to the city's water shortage and contingency plan, why this chapter needs to be modified, and we'll be discussing proposed changes to the municipal code and current city conservation efforts. A little bit of background. Governor Newsom proclaimed state of emergency due to drought in San Mateo County in July 2021, and declared statewide drought emergency in October 2021. San Bruno has been under level 1 water conservation since 2016 in response to the drought at that time and to conform with the state's 2009 water conservation regulation. The city has done amazingly well and has exceeded its target of 124 gallons per capita per day. Actual 2020 water use was 69 gallons per capita per day. The West Coast team has prepared 20 urban water management plans this past year, and the city has some of the lowest water use per capita compared with other communities. And so I want to commend the city for exceeding that goal. Unfortunately, drought conditions have worsened, and the State Water Board today adopted emergency regulations associated with the drought. This includes level 2 mandatory conservation, and I'll be explaining that shortly. So the city is well prepared for responding to this recent regulation. The city's water shortage contingency plan was adopted in October 2021. The plan prepares for responses to water shortages, both foreseeable and unforeseeable, and incorporated the state's 2018 water conservation legislation. This standardizes the water shortage conditions as shown in the chart to the right, where water shortage level 1 is associated with shortage conditions up to 10%, 2 for shortage conditions up to 20%, all the way to level 6, where there's a water shortage condition greater than 50%. The water shortage contingency plan provides city actions during water shortage emergencies organized by these shortage levels. The actions include demand reduction, supply augmentation, and operational changes. When the city's water shortage contingency plan was being prepared, staff realized that there's a need to change the city's water conservation chapter to align the San Bruno Municipal Code with state requirements, provide support to implement water shortage contingency plan during water shortage emergencies, and to support water conservation efforts. So why modify the water conservation chapter? First, the water conservation regulations under normal conditions are not in place in the current chapter. Second, water shortage emergency provisions need to be consistent with the adopted water shortage contingency plan and state requirements. And third, the city needs to better define authority and responsibility. The proposed revisions include organizing the chapter and consolidating enforcement and penalties. It includes addition of water conservation regulations under normal conditions, update to water shortage emergency provisions, and defining authority and responsibility. The chapter was reorganized to address additions, and no changes were made to enforcement and penalties, but they were consolidated under one section for consistency. The proposed revisions add water conservation regulations under normal conditions. As stated earlier, the current chapter is silent. The proposed revision prohibits wasteful water use and provides for consistency with state water conservation restrictions, prohibitions, or regulations. Examples of prohibitions include prohibiting watering outdoor landscapes that cause runoff and prohibiting hosing off land hardscapes except for health and safety needs. The proposed revisions also include update to the water shortage emergency provisions. The City Council would conduct public hearing to determine water shortage emergency condition and authorize implementation of water shortage emergency regulations consistent with California Water Code Section 350. It also includes the recently adopted water shortage stages, as shown in the table in an earlier slide, consistent with state standards and city's water shortage contingency plan, and it incorporates water use regulations consistent with the plan. The provisions also define authority and responsibility. The water shortage contingency plan addresses both foreseeable and unforeseeable events. The city has the overall responsibility for declaring water shortage emergency, and that is maintained in the proposed updates. However, convening city council could take time, which is not practical in unforeseeable events such as earthquakes or infrastructure failure. The municipal code is silent on authority until city council can convene. The authority is provided to city manager to declare water shortage emergency for imminent events, and city council would convene and ratify the water shortage emergency as soon as possible. Lastly, the municipal code refers to enforcement and penalties appeals to an appeals board, but the city does not have an appeals board established. The proposed revision authorizes the Director of Public Works to consider appeals to enforcements and penalties, and appeals could go up to the city manager for final decision. The update to the city's code is timely, as today the State Water Resources Control Board adopted emergency water conservation regulations for current drought event. This updated water conservation chapter would align the San Bruno Municipal Code with state requirements, support implementation of the city's water shortage contingency plan, and support water conservation efforts. I will now turn the presentation over to Public Works Director Matt Lee, who will talk about current city conservation efforts. Matt?
Thanks, Fedora. Next slide, please. So in terms of the conservation efforts that we've already done to date, the city is already, like Fedora said, at the level 1 conservation, voluntary conservation level. And one of the things that we do with conservation is we really focus on the demand component of it. And so there are rebate programs that we participate in at the city through various agencies, which is the Lawn Be Gone program that allows you to convert your lawn into a more drought-resistant landscape. There's the Rain Barrel Rebate Program, which collects stormwater runoff from your property and collects it in a barrel that can be used for non-potable water purposes. And then we also have the low flow toilet replacement rebates. In addition to that, there's just giveaways, just so we can reduce the usage of water by providing low flow assets and accessories such as faucet aerators, shower heads, shower timers. And for those who choose not to participate in the rebate, you can have toilet tank bags to reduce the amount of water for toilet flushes and hose nozzles. Next slide, please. In addition to the demand side, like Rodora said, our community has been doing a really great job in conserving water. And so we continue that with outreach programs. One of the programs are education programs for school-aged children called Earthcapades. We periodically send utility inserts. We've been in the process of putting banners throughout the city, as you see in the image in the lower left-hand corner. And we've recently updated our website to provide new information for water conservation. And obviously with the new mandate today from the states, we will be working with our partners and stakeholders to update the website and add any additional resources and information that are needed. Next slide, please. And so how we do that is we actually monitor water production and demand changes. We use that information to determine the intensity of our outreach and adjust our water supply whenever necessary. And when necessary and available, we can enact enforcement actions based on water usage, depending on what level we're assigned at. Next, please. Next slide, please. And so that's the presentation we have for the water conservation changes. Just in a nutshell, the amendments to the municipal code right now helps make it more explicit for City Council in terms of the actions that we'll be taking for the various levels once it's declared and decreed. I am here with Rodora, with Westios, and staff members, the Acting Water System and Conservation Manager, Steve Salazar, to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for the report. If we could stop sharing the screen when you have a sec. Thank you kindly. Questions from council members in regards to the presentation? Seeing none at this time, let's turn to the community, see if there are any folks that wish to speak or ask questions on this topic.
I do not see any hands raised at the moment.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it back to council for any comments and or action. Councilmember Hamilton.
I have just a couple of comments. There's a lot of very important changes that are being made to the mini code here. All of them very important and needed. One of the most important ones, and the one area of the current code that I dislike or that's become outdated, is that we currently are required to declare a water emergency before we can enact any conservation measures. And with the ongoing effects of climate change and repeated years of below average rainfall, we're at the point where we need to make conservation our business as usual. And having that restriction in there is silly. So you know, I want us to be at a point where conservation is the norm. And for that reason and for many other reasons, I'm in favor of these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments? Seeing none, again, if council wishes to proceed, this is if we need to waive the first reading. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to the raise hand fast enough. I just wanted to ask if I saw the city efforts. I thought that was great that it was that the city's efforts were highlighted. I did want to ask whether there's been any communication with the school district, because they own so much land, a lot of green grass. I'm curious just to know if that is played a role in this conversation at all.
Yes, that's a great question, Vice Mayor Mason. So we've recently been approached by the city of Millbrae to look at non-potable water usage for recycled water. And so there's a feasibility study that it's almost underway to get kicked off. And so they wanted to partner with us to see if we had any opportunities within our city. And so we were looking at our parks and facilities because of the amount of water usage there. And so in our conversation with them, we were able to understand what they were doing. And so we actually reached out to the school district, I believe, just last week to see if they would like to participate in this effort as well. I do have a follow-up meeting with the city of Millbrae to discuss this. And so I think you know, to answer your question, conservation is always on the top of our mind. We actually do have a conservation manager that kind of solely focuses on this. And I think that's why our metrics that show a lot of conservation and why they're so low. We have been in a voluntary level 1 effort since 2016. You know, usually when water conservation is required, certain water agencies see a reduction in water usage, but it spikes back up once the conservation goes away. But we've actually been steadily staying flat or declining. And so I think that has a lot to do with the community and the outreach that we're currently doing. And so that's where we stand with water conservation. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I see a hand, Stephen Salazar.
I wanted to add, as the drought conditions continue, the San Bruno Water Division is prepared to meet customers' needs by ensuring reliable water supply to our community without loss of water quality. And I also wanted to add, our community has done a tremendous job with their conservation efforts when needed, and we look forward to partnering with them as we continue to face the drought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any action from council? We would, it is a first reading that would need to be waived, if so.
Through the mayor?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the first reading and introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 10.16, Water Conservation of the San Bruno Municipal Code.
We'll have to, unless I'm incorrect, we'll have to take it in 2 actions. First, we need to waive the first reading, and then we will go ahead and do it. So there's a motion.
I'll amend my motion to say, I make a motion to waive the first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll switch over to Hamilton Medina. Motion seconded to waive first reading. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye. That passes at 5-0, and now there is the introduction of the ordinance.
Through the mayor?
Please.
I will make a motion to introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 10.16, Water Conservation of the San Bruno Municipal Code.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I guess I get the second. Thanks, Marty.
Hamilton Salazar, motion second regarding amending the ordinance. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mason?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye. That is passed 5-0. Thank you very much to staff and the presentation. Next, we'll move on to item B, study session for the release of the draft of the 2023 to 2031 housing element, and we'll turn that over to the director, Pamela Wu, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Pamela Wu. I'm City's Community and Economic Development Director. There we go. Thank you. With me tonight is the Planning and Housing Manager, Michael Laughlin, and Senior Planner, Michael Smith. We're very pleased to announce the public release of the city's draft housing element. Next slide, please. Tonight's objective is to announce the release of the city's draft document. We'll walk you through how we arrived at the relevant section of the draft document, including the RENA allocation, housing inventory site that City Council has studied in the January study session, how staff has developed these policies and goals, and also we'll conclude the presentation tonight with an overall adoption schedule. We'll also leave room for questions for council. With that said, I'm going to turn the presentation to Michael Smith, Senior Planner, for the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Good evening, Mayor Medina and members of City Council. My name is Michael Smith, and I'm the city's Senior Planner. The intent of this study session is to, or this presentation is to present the draft housing element and highlight progress that has been made since the January study session. Before we send our draft over to HCD for their 90-day review period. They require a public meeting for the release of the draft document and a 30-day public review period. This meeting fulfills that requirement. Once HCD's comments are received, an updated draft will be prepared, made available to decision makers and the public this fall. All public comments received will be attached to that document and in the document that we forward to HCD at the end of this 30-day public review period. So the draft document can be found on the city's website. The public review period for the draft document will be available through June 24th. It started today, May 24th. During this period, decision makers, interested agencies, housing organizations, and the public can review the document and provide comments. Comments can be sent to me, Michael Smith, at msmith@sanbruno.ca.gov. These comments will be reviewed and, where appropriate, incorporated into the draft housing element. The revised document will then be forwarded to HCD for review and comments. So over the past year, the City of San Bruno, its residents and stakeholders from across the region have participated in outreach and engagement efforts for the housing element update. And it is with excitement that the City of San Bruno released the draft today. The draft housing element establishes goals, policies, and programs to help address the city's current and future housing needs and includes a list of recommended housing sites. It is the city's blueprint for housing-related decisions and sets an action plan for how to meet housing goals over the next 8-year cycle. The release of the draft housing element begins a 30-day public comment review period in preparation for transmittal to HCD for their required initial review. The final housing element is anticipated to be reviewed by the City Council at the end of 2022. Please visit the website. It's a 2023 to 2031 housing element update /San Bruno. It's the webpage where we've currently put the housing element to review the draft. A paper copy can also be made available, we have paper copies also at the Community and Economic Development counter in City Hall, and we're also we'll have a copy at the San Bruno Public Library at 701 Angus Avenue. So we invite you to review the draft housing element and provide feedback before the end of the public review period, which is again Friday, June 24th. So a little bit about the housing element. It consists of extensive analysis on housing needs, constraints to housing production, fair housing assessment, housing resources, public engagement, and previous accomplishments, as well as proposed housing sites, goals, policies, and programs. The draft housing element and technical background reports, which are in the appendices, are available on the housing element webpage attached to the document. For tonight, I wanted to focus on two sections of the draft housing element. The first one is the site inventory list. And this is kind of based upon the input that we got from you in January, which required, your preference for the 15% buffer. And then also we'll go into a little bit of the proposed goals and programs for the housing element. So a key component of the draft housing element includes identification of potential housing site that can feasibly be developed to satisfy the city's RHNA allocation of 3,165 units. The buffer, as directed by City Council, is 15%, which brings our total up to 3,640 units. The proposed sites inventory has been updated based on City Council's direction at the January study session. And so here you are. You can see how that 15% is added by all the different income categories. And so that brings us to our grand total of 3,640. And so this is what staff has put together in the housing element to show how the city can go about meeting that RHNA goal of 3,640 units. And we've actually found a few extra. And they're divided into these different buckets that you can see here in this table. So first we have the pipeline projects, and we're estimating 670 units. We have TCP and other sites at 1,293 units. We have TANFRAN at 1,000 units. Accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, at 345. And we've identified 415 units in the Bay Hill specific plan. And that brings us up again to our total of 3,723, which is above the 15% buffer that that you requested. And it should be noted that these numbers will change as we go through the HCD review process. So first, we're going to start off with the pipeline projects. Staff has evaluated pipeline projects that could count towards the 6th cycle for RHNA. For purposes of identifying pipeline projects, staff not only considered the anticipated status of the project as of June 30th, 2022, and that date is important because that's the date by which, if a project has received a certificate of occupancy by that date, then it counts towards our current RHNA cycle. So this, and so that would be those projects that fall into that category. I think there's only one, and that is what the multifamily project being constructed at Skyline College. So based upon what we have right now, some of these projects you'll recognize. They're projects that have maybe come to you for review or otherwise been reviewed by the Planning Commission. And so in this bucket, we've identified 670 units. And these projects will not get their certificate of occupancy before June 30th. So we are considering these pipeline projects. And so that's where the 670 comes from in that previous table. This map is an enlargement of portion of the sites inventory map that's in the housing element and shows the location of the sites relative to the census boundaries in the city. The blue lines represent the boundaries for the different census tracts. It describes how the housing units will be distributed citywide. As you can see, most of the housing is concentrated in and around the TCP, and that's defined by the magenta or purple boundaries on the map. So staff really had to analyze sites within the TCP and determine that there is significant housing development potential along its corridors, which are likely to develop within the next RHNA cycle. The estimated housing densities for sites is based on numerous conversations with developers and the density of projects that have already been entitled and proposed within the TCP. Therefore, staff believes that the densities represent a realistic development potential for the sites. There are a number of sites in the inventory that are located outside the TCP, and you can see these a little bit further afield, like site number 6 over here. That's the Engvall Middle School site. And then we also have these ones out here in the Bay Hill, and then of course the TANFRAN site at number 14. So there are some sites outside of the TCP. A limited number of rezonings will be required. So far, staff has identified that the TANFRAN site will need to be rezoned to accommodate the 1,000 housing units that we're anticipating for that site. And we anticipate starting a master planning process hopefully sometime in 2022. So the TANFRAN is the largest site that we've identified with the most RHNA units. Again, it's 1,000 units, which is 41% of our overall site inventory. And that is all located in Census Tract 6041.02. When you include the other 3 sites located in the census tract, so you can kind of see that right here, this census tract will actually account for 72% of San Bruno's overall RENA inventory. And that 72% includes Tanforan, Bay Hill Shopping Center, and the Traeger office building at 801 to 851 Traeger, and the AT&T vacant office building. And that's a total of 1,735 units. And then just simply going over some of these other sites here, you'll recognize, I'll read off a few, but I don't need to read off all 23. But some of the sites you're familiar with is the ones just south of City Hall, the former Mike's Auto property. We identified a few banks that have large parking lots in the downtown that could be developed with housing. And then, of course, the car dealerships along El Camino Real, associated with the former Melody Toyota, and I think it's the Ford site, former Ford site across the street, Ford auto dealership. So ACD allows each jurisdiction to include ADUs as part of its overall RENA obligation based on the average number of building permits the jurisdiction issued for ADUs of the previous 3 years, and that's 2019 to 2021, as specified in its annual progress report. San Bruno issued building permits for 68 ADUs in 2021, and projecting forward, staff estimates ADU construction to be more in line with the number of applications the city received in 2020 and 2021, and is including an ADU estimate of 345 units over the 8-year planning period, which is approximately 43 units per year. So the Bay Hill specific plan, which was adopted by the city in October of 2021, included 2 housing overlay designations in appropriate locations in which landowners have the option of developing housing. These designations allow up to 573 dwelling units. So staff took a look at the plan and evaluated the overlay zones in conjunction with input from property owners, and has determined housing is most likely to be constructed at the Bay Hill Shopping Center site at 851 Cherry, and at the office buildings located at 801 to 851 Traeger Avenue. These 2 sites are zoned for a maximum of 415 dwelling units. Now we're going to take a look a little bit at how we developed our goals and policies that you'll find in the housing element. So we're just providing a small snapshot of some of the analysis that form the basis of our recommended goals and programs. In the draft housing element, you will find a lot more analysis covering housing topics such as demographics, housing needs, constraints to housing, and housing resources. Inputs to goals and programs included existing goals and programs, so we took a look at those and we culled those ones that were still relevant, and we're going to carry those forward into the next housing element, or we're recommending. We also assessed housing needs here in the city, so there's a whole section in the document that talks about really what's happening in San Bruno on a housing level. And then we have affirmatively furthering fair housing. This is a new requirement, and this really looks at kind of the city affirmatively correcting situations regarding housing that have existed for many years, where different races are becoming isolated in communities. And then lastly, we look at public outreach and did a lot of public outreach, and then we did some surveys. So these are some of our broader housing goals that we looked at. As I said, the housing element is required to include goals and programs and policies to be implemented over the 8-year plan period. And these policies need to encourage the development of housing and improve access to housing units. Based on public feedback and the background data analysis that I talked about earlier, staff developed these 8 overarching goals presented on the slide. The complete list of draft programs associated with these goals is attached to the staff report, and so I'll just read these quickly. Goal number 1 is to improve the development review and approval process to reduce processing times and simplify administration. Goal number 2, increase the availability of housing throughout the city. Goal number 3, protect current residents from displacement. Goal number 4, support the needs of households with low incomes and special needs. Goal number 5, improve the city's management of its affordable housing portfolio and housing funds. Goal number 6, preserve the affordability of existing at-risk affordable housing. And goal number 7, promote sustainable residential development that is energy efficient and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And goal number 8 is to promote equity in housing. And so again, these are just the broader goals, and there's a whole list of programs associated with each one of these goals in the draft housing element. So a little bit about the public outreach process. To get the public involved in the process over the last year and a half, staff met with fair housing advocates, service providers, and housing developers, hosted an introductory housing element meeting and AU workshop through public outreach conducted with 21 elements. In addition, staff held 2 community meetings, launched a community meeting survey, which were promoted through the city's social media, announced on Channel 1, inserted into utility bills, included in the city manager's newsletter, and distributed to downtown businesses. Also, in partnership with 21 Elements, a fair housing survey was also distributed to residents. Feedback obtained from all of these outreach efforts has been incorporated into the housing element and draft policies. Our final public workshop will be held on May 26th, 2022 at 6 p.m. You can find links on the Housing Element Update website for that meeting. The public will be given further opportunity at this meeting to comment on the document based on the draft policies that we put together so far. And then the public will also be given an opportunity to comment on the document in the fall when the document goes through the formal adoption process. And again, all comments received will be included in the appendices and forwarded to HED with the document for review. And so now just touch on the schedule. As I said, we're going to take this will be back before you in the fall. So I'm going to show you through the schedule of how we're going to get there. So this is the schedule for the housing element through certification. So right now we're in the public 30-day public review period, which is May 4th through June 24th. This council study session is a meeting that we're having today. We're looking at submitting the draft to HCD in early July. And then they have a 90-day review period. We'll be revising the document in response to their comments in September in October. And we'll publish the public hearing draft and the first round of HCD comments incorporated in probably late October, but September, October. Circulate the CEQA document associated with this, and that will also happen in the September-October period. And then we'll have hearings for adoption in October and December. And we're looking to submit the adopted document to HCD in December and have it certified by the end of January. And January 31st of 2023 is the drop dead deadline. So, any questions? This concludes my presentation. Is there any questions?
Thank you much for everyone's presentation and comments. And I will turn it over to Vice Mayor Mason.
Thank you, everyone. I know how much work's been put into this, so we really appreciate the dedication. I just wanted to ask, at the last meeting I had asked about the brackets, the very low income, the low income. Could we get the ranges of what those income levels are? so that we can just, I'd like to know for San Mateo County, but I think it would be good for the public to understand what those brackets are as well.
Sure, Vice Mayor. Michael, can you bring that slide, the RENA allocation with the 15%?
Well, are you asking for the AMI, area median income? Yeah, okay. So that's, I don't have that in this slideshow. I do know that it's roughly about $149,000 for a family of 4 in San Mateo County. And then that's kind of like the median, and then it kind of goes down and up from there. I can forward that to you, but it's also in the housing, the draft housing element as well.
It would be great if it's included in the next public presentation, just
Sure.
so that the public is aware, because I think there's often misnomers about what affordable housing is, and it's quite shocking what the minimum is for some of these units to just qualify to get into them. But other than that, I'm really glad to see the allocations towards the very low and low income, and hopefully we have some developers come to the table to meet us on those needs. Thank you.
City Hall, please.
Sure. Through the mayor, just for clarification, I believe what the vice mayor is asking for is both the AMI and the area median income, but then also what a very low, and moderate unit may sell and rent for. And so I think we can provide the full complement of that information to the full council.
Right, and city manager, not just sell for, but if it's rental, I imagine a number of these will be, what is the minimum qualification for eligibility?
Absolutely. So really three data points for every income level: area median income, what a affordable unit will rent for, and what an affordable unit will sell for. Thank you.
Other questions from colleagues? Councilmember Medina.
More of thanks for the effort. We all know and have heard all across the region of the housing needs and what we're doing to try to meet the required allocations. I appreciate that staff was able to add in that buffer of that 15%. Do we have an idea which HCD is going to be? Does staff have contact with them now to get an idea? Are they expecting a larger number, or it's pretty much you wait until you turn it in that you get any feedback? That's my first question. And then, understandably, TANPRAN will be going through a master plan process to take property that isn't zoned to become zoned for potentially for housing. For other areas being nearby town center and the warehouses along Sneeze, just wanted to hear staff kind of go through the process that each of those areas would have to kind of go through the same thing of their own master plan. Is that how typically it works?
Yes, Councilmember Medina, I'll take a crack at answering your first question. So staff has been in close contact with HCD. If I were to guess, we would not know what their feedback is until we send the revised copy. But we met the number, and we also provided a 15% buffer. If I were to give it a bet, I think we're pretty good. And then the second question that you've asked is in regard to the nearby area adjacent to TANPRAN. So as of now, the town center does not allow for any residential use. And staff working collaboratively with other consultants have not taken into account for any residential units within those areas. So they're not included on the inventory list. And to answer your question, yes, it would require some sort of a general plan amendment and also zoning update to change the underlying zoning to allow housing, leave alone to also to comply with the ALUC and also SFO guidelines. And so that would include most of the town center. The industrial warehousing area is currently zoned industrial. Warehousing is also not allowed.
Got it. So it's a little more elaborate process. just want to make sure that was clear and that we had like a backup plan of where would we put the house, because we do have difficulty with our geography and being that we don't have too much space available.
Understood.
Thank you.
Other questions at this time from colleagues? If not, let's move to the public for any folks and members of the community that would like to ask questions or have comments. Now would be the time for you to raise your hand, and Peter will bring you into the room.
I will now be bringing in Paul Lipinski. Paul, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you may begin.
Thank you. 3,600 units figure about 3 people per unit, which is going to approximately 10,000 more people, which is about 25% of the increase in the city's population. What's missing in this plan is, where's the water going to come to support all these people? We just had a brief on that we're going to, be having water rationing for people that already live here, yet we're going to build more units for people that aren't going to have water to support them. California hasn't built a dam since the 70s. There's no reverse osmosis plant or any other water producing or storage facilities that are planned to be built. Not to mention, the state wants people to buy electric cars, and a lot of our electricity is hydroelectric. So there's a lot of holes in this plan. I think that we should address these. I've already sent my comments in, but that's something that nobody ever talks about. But I think it's a pretty big deal, since, you can live without food for a while, but you can't live without water. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public, please?
I do not see any other hand up.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring it back again. As we know, this is a study session. It's back to council. But one thing, because I'll tell you, you hear it here in town from many, as I deal with other electeds in the county, or just last Friday with some of them in San Carlos. That is something that everybody hears, is water. How are we able to do this without that? And I know that it's brought into the report, right, when a project comes online and all of that. But I think it really is at a fundamental level, everyone's saying, hey, it's too crowded. Hey, what about electricity? Hey, what about water? And of course, the state mandates with the arena numbers. So it's not that they're asking our permission. They're dictating, unless there's a better word I should choose, to what we must meet by a certain timeline. Can staff kind of help bring in the fold of kind of how that's kind of dealt with, please? And I rambled, and I appreciate that, Director Wu.
Yes, of course, Mr. Mayor, you did a very good job. So the state provided an overarching goal for every jurisdiction to meet. Part of the housing element update is also a CEQA analysis. Part of the CEQA analysis that staff will undergo is to produce a water study to make sure that there's adequate water. As you mentioned, every city is fighting for the same water source. So through this water study, as evaluated through our CEQA analysis, we'll see how we can carefully and also strategically provide the water sources for the projected population increase.
Thank you. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank you and our director for answering the question that I had, and also addressing our public comment from Mr. Lipinski. These are numbers that are mandated, I think might be the word, from the state, and there are penalties that could be quite costly if we don't meet those numbers. Now, the drought is changing the landscape clearly of what's going on here, and you bring up some Mr. Lipinski brings up some excellent points, and I also, Mr. Mayor, hear the same thing in the community as we're looking at development, and the concern is, where we get the water from, and we have to do the analysis as the project comes online. Right now, if we were to get 3,600 units all at the same time, who knows? Do we have enough water? And the last time we looked at projects, we did have the water, but things change from year to year. So we have to evaluate things as they come in, but we're mandated to comply with the housing element, and that's why we're taking it forward.
Any other questions, comments from colleagues in regards to this topic, which is a study session? Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, and I just want to I just say that I understand the concerns, and I think that that is something everyone's grappling with. But here in San Bruno, we are a working class community, and a lot of our residents service residents as you go south in the peninsula. And you see job openings everywhere you go, all the hotels, the fast food restaurants, the restaurants. We went to Red Robin the other day, and they had like 2 staff members servicing the entire restaurant. They need to live somewhere, and that's why I stress so much the need for very low income and low income, because everywhere that's a service industry, has people, or you hope there's people working there, and they're able to have a good, decent living where they can live with dignity. And so I think that hopefully we're able to balance all of these things out. These are mandates. But I do think it is really important that we're looking at the industries that need workers and how we can help to house that industry here within San Bruno and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands up, then I want to go ahead and thank staff for their presentation and taking the questions. Thank you very kindly. Next, we will move on to under conduct of business, item C, please.
7C, appointment of 2 city council members to the Fireworks Application Review Subcommittee.
Oh, I forgot it's noted for me. So just as a recap, and I want to thank staff for getting this information. The last time this came up was on June 8th of 2021. Mr. Salazar and myself were on the ad hoc committee. And so we reported back at that time, and we made comments, overview a little bit, and also said both of us would concur that there may not be the need for that type of an ad hoc committee, because it's basically, and there was a variety of reasons, I won't articulate everything that was back on the tape, but there is a provision under item C under resolution 2008-67, which is, states a city council subcommittee may, the word is may, review the applications and the city clerk findings and make recommendations to the city council. The topic comes to city council under consent for a concurrence, a vote, yes or no, to that. As we know, and it was articulated by Councilmember Salazar, the Phantom or TNT provide the paperwork. They go to a mandatory meeting. They have to go through the process and the paperwork and the applications which are available. So the question comes up whether we do need to have an appointment. So really, there was not a vote or a concurrence or a majority that said, hey, going forward, maybe we don't need this. We don't need to take 2 colleagues to have on an ad hoc committee to review applications and turn it back to staff, and for then staff to put it on consent. So that's what we're here for before you tonight, whether we wish to do that or just have staff do what they do at the fire, police, and city clerk's office, and then have it come to consent as it normally does. So I'm not automatically going to appoint it, because I'm asking the question whether it's necessary. And again, we have the option of may. It's not a requirement. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That keyword there is may. I haven't served on that review committee before, so I can't really say how much work it's really involved. I do have a random question about, do we ever look into making sure that those vendors are serving our community? Like, clearly, I know, like Cappuccino it serves our community, but do all the vendors, are they serving the community, and does that fall within any of the review of this committee, or who makes that determination?
Fair question. I'm going to ask Councilmember Salazar, who's done it much longer than I, but I believe in the application process, yes, you have to list who you are. There are, I'm going to go off memory and what I heard, there are 9 groups that are grandfathered. There are 18 that are open. I think we had 13 last year, maybe 14 the year before. If it exceeds 18, then there is a lottery pool. But again, there are 9 that are grandfathered. That was within it unless we change that. So half were already grandfathered in. But yes, they're to be, and it is put in their application, what are you doing with it? Well, who are you servicing and how are you servicing it?
The part of the application requirements also is to submit a roster of members, or for the sport teams, that also lists who's on the team and their city of residence.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. I think that since it's the word may, that we could choose not to, and I would be in support of that. And I'll listen to my colleagues on their comments.
Okay. Next is Councilmember Hamilton.
The measurement that I'm using on this is, does having council members review this add any value? It seems like the process is pretty well done in terms of that there's specific rules that need to be followed, and if we end up with too many applicants, it goes to a lottery, and it doesn't come down to a determination of council or anything like that. And if obviously I haven't served on it either, on this committee either, but if the folks who have been serving on it can attest that we're really not adding any value here, then I see no reason to continue it. And that's not a knock on anybody, but it's sometimes the process doesn't need more people, and this might be one of those times.
No, I like to add value. No, but I think that's what Councilmember Salazar and I were saying last time, is it's not necessary, and it's not necessary. Why are we having staff do something and we're doing something? The other thing, too, is when I say they, police and fire have or at least the fire marshal, has a mandatory meeting with all of those that are in process. And if they don't attend that meeting, then they don't come to us for a vote. So they have their, like you said, Councilmember Hamilton, they have their criteria and da-da-da-da. To answer, and I would attest that it's probably not necessary with the system in place. Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. So I don't know that I have a preference either way. I did want to just ask though. And because maybe my recollection's wrong, but I believe some of the conversation also was around that the PTAs also have the ability to have a stand, and that staff was going to reach out to those PTAs last year. And then I think we moved on and we didn't check back to see how that noticing went and whether the PTAs were in fact interested in hosting fireworks stands. And so I know it's been a year, and I actually don't know whether anybody did any research on this, but I am curious to know whether that occurred last year and what the outcome of that was.
Good question. I don't know the answer. I know that, if you meet the criteria, you can apply. We haven't had 18 in a while. I know there's a PTO at CAP, or maybe it's sports. I don't recall. But yes, I believe they can apply. They need to do that. But I will defer to staff if they know. Obviously, they do know more than me, but if they can help in that question.
Thank you, Mayor Medina and Vice Mayor Mason, for your question. I do believe that our former city clerk did do outreach at this moment. I don't want to say the conclusion of that just because I don't know precisely. But what the mayor did say is correct, is that there's always an open invitation to all groups in the community, and they're welcome to apply. We can make sure that there's continual outreach and a dedicated outreach to PTAs, but whether or not that happened last year without the former city clerk applying, I don't want to say on record.
I would just say that even though it's an open invitation, the same applicants plan on this every year, which I think is great. But I think some of the PTAs in particular, I think didn't even know that that was an option because it had been so long. And so if we could reach out to our public school PTAs and ensure that they're aware that they have that ability, and that they would get to apply just like any other organization that's within those groups, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
And I would go further. If we do that, I think it should be to all schools within our community. I mean, they all have that ability.
I think it's the way it's written I'm fine with, but I thought it was targeted towards the public schools, but I could be wrong. However it's targeted, however it's written, that would be great.
Okay, Councilmember Salazar.
So on the question, I just wanted to also reaffirm that the council's participation in the review doesn't add a lot of value. There is no veto power or any ability to question who's submitting, and so it's really just a very ministerial review of the documents, making sure they're all there. I mean, I created a checklist, and you basically flip to the packets and check off that everything is there. Staff has been very consistent and thorough in doing it, so I don't think that there's any value in that. And regarding the adding of different groups, we've seen a lot of the groups sort of start to lose interest over time. It seems like an easy way to make money. But in my experience and just in my participation with the Cappuccino Sports Boosters, it's hard to get volunteers. The organization does have to have its own tax ID, so it has to be a recognized organization in order to do business with the fireworks vendors. So, those are all considerations. I don't know that all PTOs are established as nonprofits, but if they don't have a tax ID, then that's one of the first things they ask for on the application. So it might be limited to groups that are more formal and well-established. And I know, I believe one of the soccer groups reached out earlier this year to me because they weren't going to be able to do it, and they were looking for other folks. I reached out to the other booster groups at Cappuccino, and nobody was really willing to make the commitment. So it is hard, and I know Marty can attest to it since he's been in the booth plenty of times.
It's a lot of work in that condensed time. Councilman Medina.
Thank you, Councilman Salazar. You're absolutely right. It's the 4th of July. The week leading to the 4th of July, a lot of people leave, and we're always scrambling for people to work the booths, and it's a lot of work. My suggestion would be to contact the San Bruno Education Foundation, and maybe they can mass the PTAs and PTOs together, and then kind of split the work and split the money, and it still would be a great cause, and a little competition is not going to hurt anybody, so it's all good. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there, maybe if I ask it this way, is there anyone on the council at this time that feels this year that we should have I'll put it here, it's a subcommittee or ad hoc committee to do the ministerial work as indicated? Is there anybody that I'm a no. Mr. Salazar can tell you no. Okay. All right. I at least see 4 of us saying no thank you at this time. Anybody else that wants to chime in? So I have 4 at least confirmed which is both Medina's, a Hamilton, and a Salazar, that we wish not to appoint 2 members of the City Council for the fireworks application review. City Hall. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that direction is clear. Just as a suggestion on how we'll handle this in future years, because Resolution 2008-67 has the word may, and we're not amending that, I think the most appropriate thing, instead of staff bringing this action back every year, is when we conclude our policies and procedures conversation, we'll include a note in the policies and procedures that the council has requested not to have a annual subcommittee, but any council member can request a discussion of such, and we would agendize it. I think that'll be a clear process. That way it's documented. And of course, it'll be noted in the minutes for tonight's meeting, but 5 years from now, who's going to remember that this happened on May 24th, 2022?
Good point, and thank you for bringing it up, because you're right. It says May, so future councils can say, hey, things have changed, and maybe we need to go back down that path. Okay, thank you. With that said, I think that's clear direction. Thank you, City Manager. Now we'll move on to item 8, comments from council members, colleagues. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tomorrow at Bel Air Elementary, 350 3rd Avenue, is Second Harvest. We've been doing this for quite a while. It's where residents or those people in need could show up between 1:45 and 4 o'clock and get some groceries for free. We're right around 200 families come in for the one event, and we also could use some volunteers. It's getting hot, and we can't work as well as we'd like to when it's really hot. And then I think you can have the honor of congratulating the Cappuccino CCS teams, Mr. Mayor. I know it's been a busy week, but I'm not sure how well aware the community is of our softball and our baseball teams at CAP. Being in the CCS at the same time, and I don't want to steal your thunder because you are the alumnus there. So yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Councilmember Hamilton.
All right, I have two items, one happy and one decidedly not. First one regarding the American Legion Pancake Breakfast. So please join us this coming Saturday, May 28th at the American Legion for our monthly pancake breakfast. This event resumed last month after a long COVID-caused hiatus. It was very well attended last month, so we're back in action on a monthly basis. The American Legion Post is located at 757 San Mateo Avenue here in San Bruno. The event begins at 8 a.m. this coming Saturday, and I hope you can join us. The other item is a request. As we've all been reading in the news today, there was yet another reprehensible school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. I just checked, the death toll is up to 21, including 19 children who were murdered senselessly today in Texas at Robb Elementary School. And I would respectfully request that we adjourn tonight in memory of the victims of that reprehensible, senseless event.
And also as a note, at the White House, President Biden lowered the flags, which obviously has that for the federal buildings, et cetera, and at City Hall as well. For City Hall, the flag to half-mast in respect and honor of, I shouldn't say honor, respect and memory of those that were killed today.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Mason.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I actually didn't agendize it, so it can't be a discussion, but I did just want to ask also around the communication to the PTA now that baseball season, I guess summer season starting, but whether there's been any communication out to them around the snack booth. There had been a request last year to ensure that the Park and Rec Department informed the PTAs that it is available. And I don't know what happened with that and whether there was any follow-up. And I commend the women, and it is women, who are at the snack bar during the baseball games for hours on end, because it is a selfless job and they volunteer to do it all day. but they're not there every day, so there might be some opportunity for the PTAs, especially in this coming summer months, to make some extra money for their schools, who really so desperately need it. I also wanted to thank Recology for bringing back the compost program that was brought up at our last meeting. I'm glad that was communicated, and I'm happy to see that they are bringing that back again. The San Bruno Education Foundation had their first annual fundraiser on May 14th. We haven't had a full meeting since then, and I just wanted to comment that they did a fabulous job. And hopefully they get the date out for next year so that the community can put this date on their calendar. As a reminder to those who have been watching, you don't have to be the parent of a school-age child to attend to support your local education foundation. And this is a group of volunteers, they are not paid, who have been working for years to build up the education foundation. So this was kind of a symbol of all the work that they have been doing. And a lot of those who started the foundation are actually still on the foundation running it. So I'm just really proud to be part of it and to have attended, and hopefully we'll see this becoming an annual event. And then just also wanted to thank the city staff who's been working so thoughtfully on bringing more diversity and events from the Dia de los Muertos all the way to the Lunar New Year. And now really excited for the June 11th event that is celebrating Juneteenth. And then the Polynesian dancers that are going to open up our festivities. So a lot of thoughtfulness is coming into the planning, and it's really, really appreciated by, I think, the residents of San Bruno. And then lastly, I just want to concur with Councilmember Hamilton's request. There's just no words, so if we could close in memory of those who passed away today, would be wonderful. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I just want to say, because I did state it, so in case I'm incorrect, the composter was one last year on August of 2021. So to my knowledge, it just wasn't well attended. So it never has ceased to my understanding any year. I do want to I'll just make it quick. We're going to talk about the community day community drop-off day that occurred, and then that'll be at the next council meeting, and that can be more dived into with more detail. But want to thank all of those that were present from staff and those of the church and everybody else that participated and volunteered. Thank you. And then also, I do want to say happy graduation to everyone that is graduating. Some who maybe have young folks here on the council that are celebrating a graduation, or from our college to our high school to our junior high to our fifth graders to our kindergartners or even the preschool. A happy graduation to each and every one. Best of wishes as you embark upon a new chapter, whatever that may be. Wish you great success and hope. The other thing is, let me make this clear before I go to the last part. This city council will be going back into closed session. I'm going to read a couple items that we definitely will be, because we weren't able to conclude in the first closed session. Conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. There is one case. If there is reportable action from that, we would be coming out from closed session to general session again for a report out if required. But also I want to add these other two items, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. There are two items on that. They are for properties APN 02014220 and 02014204, as well as APN 02014140. So I listed three property items there, and so just that it is clear what items will be going into and are available for discussion in closed session. And again, we may be reporting out on the one item, and which means council, we would need to reconvene back out here and have a report out from the city attorney if necessary and required. If there is reportable, it is required. With that said,
through the mayor.
Yes.
Can I ask, just logistically, will we get a new Zoom, or do we go back to the 4 p.m. Zoom?
Excellent question, Mr. Hamilton. City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Hamilton. I didn't hear the precise question, but I think it was logistics about reporting back out, which is
no, it was about once we conclude from here, which link do you want us to go back to continue our closed session?
The initial link that we used for the closed session discussions, and so that should remain active. I will test that right after we conclude this meeting. But I want to ask the city attorney a question, which was, does the report out need to happen if there's a necessity for a report out? Do we need to reconvene this meeting, or can we do that at the next regular meeting? It's just a logistical issue about staff keeping this current public link open for the duration of whenever the closed session is over.
Great question.
Thank you, Javon. I did check that earlier, and the state law does require that the report of initiation of litigation be made at the same meeting in open session at the end of the closed session. So unfortunately, we do have to do it at this meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, and we will leave this link active. Staff will put up a note that the city council is in closed session, and should there be a reportable item, we'll reactivate this link. Thank you very much. And we'll actually make sure that we edit the video so someone doesn't have to wait 45 minutes if they are watching the minutes of this or the video of this meeting.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody getting logistics. If we were all sitting there, then it would be easy to walk in the next room. But then I do want to adjourn this meeting to the regular city council meeting, which would be held on June 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. And I know there's been a request to adjourn. To adjourn in memory of, but I'd also like to expand it because there have been, maybe this isn't the great get on this topic, but there have been a lot of deaths in many schools and in many places of worship and education and in transportation. It just seems to boggle the mind that you turn on the news and then you're just taken back again. It is sad to know that people go to work, people go to pray, people go to school, people go to teach, and they don't come home. And at some point, there has to be enough. That's just on my personal view. But with that, then for all of this that we have lost in senseless acts as today, I would ask us to adjourn in their memory and to give our thoughts and support to their families. For a moment of silence, please. Thank you for that moment and honoring all of those and remembering them and their families. So with that, colleagues, we will go back to the original 4 p.m. Zoom link to continue our closed session. See you there momentarily. I believe that we are all here, and we will go ahead and reconvene the San Bruno City Council meeting of May the 24th at 9:19 p.m. And we do have a reportable action, and I will turn it over to the city attorney to report that out, please.
Thank you very much. This is to report that on the last closed session item, initiation of litigation, City Council did unanimously vote to approve joining litigation already filed by the county and many other cities in San Mateo County against Monsanto over PCB contamination and cleanup costs. So that does conclude the litigation report from the closed session, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, staff, and that will conclude this meeting, and the next meeting will be June 14, 2022 at 7 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned. Take care.